night of incarceration for the former President Jacob Zuma, handing himself over to authorities just a little before midnight last night. Let's continue to get some reaction as to how this now plays out politically, perhaps, what it means for the party as well. Former Director General in the presidency, Reverend Frank Chikane, there he is. Reverend, good morning to you. You've said publicly that you think that Jacob Zuma should get a presidential pardon if he applies for it, but I imagine there's a condition attached to that. Good morning. Help me understand what you mean.
Yeah, good morning. Let me start by saying, the former deputy president assisted a lot by handing himself over to the authorities, because I think that the standoff was not helping the country at all. And it has avoided any risks that were anticipated. And so we really thank him for taking that position and making that decision. On the issue about pardon, maybe let me say what I said, because I think the words can be problematic. I was asked whether I would consider a pardon if he asked for it. And my view is that, pardons are a prerogative of the president. There are rules that govern pardons. You can't just do it ordinarily. And I said that, but people who apply for pardons, in my view, would be those who say, I've made a mistake. I shouldn't have done this, or this has happened, or the other. I'm asking for pardon. But it can't be that you are defying the courts and then ask for pardon, that type of thing. And so that's really what that discussion was about. But a pardon is the prerogative of the president, so I don't have the powers to execute that.
Let me ask you this, Reverend, and I don't think many people would argue about the former president admitting to mistakes, but admitting to mistakes, apologizing for those mistakes, and then being held accountable for those mistakes are three very different things. Just admitting to it might not be good enough, A, for the country, and B, good enough for a presidential pardon. Do you agree that the former president not just has to admit to the mistakes, but has to apologize and serve any kind of, whether it's a sentence or political sentence involved?
Yeah, it's not even apologize. It's more being accountable, because he was head of state. He was head of the state, and therefore would be expected to account for those things that happened during the time when he was head of state. And I'm saying that you can't say, that's all I was saying. You can't say that you want pardon, but I'm not going to account. The two things can't go hand in hand.
No, sure.
So it's accounting that's important for the Defend Our Democracy campaign. By the way, this is my personal view about pardon, because I made that statement when I was asked. But for the Defend Our Democracy campaign, I think this is more about respecting the Constitution, the law, and making sure that everyone is equal before the law, and that the former president needs to account to the nation as he was expected to do so, and that he can't say, no, I'm not going to account. I think that's the real issue. And so pardon comes later. It's not an issue of priority for now. What is critical is he ready to account? And I think that's really what is required.
It is what's required. I couldn't agree with you more, Reverend. As the former Director General in the presidency, if Cyril Ramaphosa phoned you up after our conversation this morning and said, Reverend, what do you think I should do about a potential presidential pardon for Jacob Zuma, what would you advise him?
I don't want to speak about that, but there were two. There are ordinary pardons that presidents do, particularly, those that are, if you criminal records and other things that people need to be removed and etc. But pardons are very difficult, especially when they become political. They are very difficult because the nation wants to see the president reflecting their expectations, not a view that wants to just punish somebody for the sake of it, but they want accountability. And so if the president was going to consider it, he would have to weigh between the two things and say, are you ready to account to the nation? Because that's all the nation is. By the way, this is not about he's in prison not because of corruption in terms of the cases of corruption. They are still coming. But this one is about, compliance with the law and appearing in court. That's what it is about. So and that is about accounting for that period. It's not about the corruption cases which are still coming. So one would expect that on this one, it is about accountability to the nation. And I think that's the least the people, they are not baying for his blood or wanting him to stay in prison, but the issue is, are you accountable? And everybody must know, if you take leadership, whatever you do, you must be ready to be accountable to the people.
I couldn't agree with you more. Reverend Frank Chikane, I appreciate you speaking to us this morning here on eNCA, former Director General in the presidency, saying that he does support the idea of a presidential pardon if Jacob Zuma applies for it, but only if he does admit to his mistakes.